everybody? Welcome to episode 158 of the Club JG podcast. I'm your host, yours truly, John Graham, aka JG. We got a whole lot to get into with NBA free agency because a whole lot went down the past few days. So I'm just going to get right into it. First of all, the Milwaukee Bucks released Damian Lillard, a guy that they spent a bunch of first-round picks on, looking to pair with Giannis Antetokounmpo in chances of getting Milwaukee another championship. Those plans have just all but just died, all have failed because Milwaukee has since cut Damian Lillard, and then they since signed Miles Turner. So immediately I'm sitting here thinking, where is Giannis Antetokounmpo's mind right now? Does he even want to stay in Milwaukee any longer? I thought he should have got him out of Milwaukee weeks ago. I don't know why he's waiting. I don't know why he hasn't formally requested a trade. I don't know what more writing on the wall you need to see. Milwaukee is not competing for a championship with the roster that's constructed right now. You got Kevin Porter Jr. as your starting point guard. You got Gary Trent. You got Giannis. You lost Brook Lopez and replaced him with Miles Turner, essentially a younger Brook Lopez based on how his game is. And then you got Bobby Portis. That doesn't look like a team that's going to compete for a championship. So if I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo, I need to start exploring my options. I need to see what else is out there because I'm clearly not going to win one here. As for Damian Lillard, I have a hard time figuring out where he's going to play next, but I know that he's at least excited to get out of Milwaukee. There's been reports that Damian Lillard has been quote unquote elated to be released from Milwaukee so that he can find another team to contend for a championship. Your first thoughts, you think of Miami, you think of maybe the Lakers outside chance. Those are the first two teams that kind of come to mind. But honestly, I struggle to kind of figure out where I actually would send Damian Lillard right now. Now, Damian Lillard is still he's a Hall of Fame guard. Has never won a championship, but he's still one of the greatest guards we've ever seen. So he can definitely help a team. It's just a matter of like what team would be like the best fit for Damian Lillard. Which one would make the most sense? And recently, the LA Lakers signed center DeAndre Ayton after he completed his buyout with the Portland Trail Blazers. The Lakers desperately needed a center in free agency. They missed out on a couple guys, but getting DeAndre Ayton, the former number one overall pick, you imagine that he would give you some more of an offensive threat than likes of Jackson Hayes and Alex Len. There have been some questions about DeAndre Ayton's motor over the years, his motivation, his prowess on the defensive end. But the numbers tell me that DeAndre Ayton is still going to be a decent pickup. He's an upgrade from what the Lakers have had as far as center this past season, so he should be able to help. So I imagine that DeAndre Ayton will be better with that. Who are my winners and my losers of free agency so far? Let's talk about the winners first. Got to tip your hat to the Houston Rockets, first of all. They went out and got Kevin Durant. They shipped out Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green. By and large, you imagine that Houston barely gave up anything to Phoenix to get Kevin Durant. Yet he lost some second-round picks, but the way that Jalen Green was looking going into these playoffs, you imagine that he was definitely going to be on the move, and hopefully someone would take him. Phoenix went ahead and did that, but they're not even done with Jalen Green. They actually won Jalen Green out of Phoenix, so it's looking. The future is looking a little cloudy for the young star, a guy that I believe still has a lot of promise and has a good ceiling, but he's got to be a lot more consistent than he was this past season, especially in the playoffs. He had a horrific series against the Golden State Warriors. He only had one 30-point game, and the rest were basically single digits. That's not going to get it done. So Houston's probably happy they got out of that situation. You land Kevin Durant to pair him up with Alvin Sengun and Amen Thompson, who I'm very high on. I believe Amen Thompson can take that next step and start developing a consistent jump shot. The Houston Rockets are going to be very difficult to stop. In fact, I already am going to go so far as to say that the Houston Rockets should be a betting favorite to overtake the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference and get to the NBA Finals next year. I think right now they are tied for the second best odds to win the Western Conference, next to Denver and obviously behind Oklahoma City. And also, KD and the Rockets, they signed Dorian Finney-Smith, who I thought was huge. Dorian Finney-Smith turned into such a key component with the LA Lakers when they did their small ball lineups. And it proved to be very effective. He's a very good three-point shooter, very decent defender on the wing, and it adds depth to a Houston team that already has pretty good depth. You're talking about Cam Whitmore, who's coming back off a nice rookie year. Eason coming off of a decent year. You sign back Steven Adams. You sign Fred VanVleet. You sign all your guys back to make sure you keep this core intact. Houston's got a very good team here, and they're led by a very good coach in Ime Udoka. So definitely got to look out for the Rockets on next year. They are one of my winners for NBA fantasy. NBA fantasy. That's funny. NBA free agency this year. And another winner that I have to say, and surprisingly so, the Atlanta Hawks. Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks. they have done a decent job here with their signings. You get a trade for Kristaps Porzingis to add with Trae Young. You have Dyson Daniels coming back after a stellar defensive year, who's only going to get better on the offensive end. And you got this kid Jalen Johnson, a guy that many people may not know because a lot of people aren't watching the Hawks a whole lot. But he's a very talented young player out of Duke. He's really starting to come into his own. You started to see a little bit of that last season. A lot of people are very high on Jalen Johnson. They think that he's going to take a huge jump this season. If that happens, Atlanta's going to have some weapons out there to go with Trae Young, and they can make a push in the Eastern Conference. Atlanta is looking at the Eastern Conference right now wide open because the Boston Celtics, we know about the fire sale that they've got going on. They traded away Porzingis, traded away Drew Holiday. It's possible that Derek White could be on the move next, and I think it's very unlikely, but don't be surprised if the Celtics are going to try to look in trades for Jaylen Brown as well. You're looking at a possibility to get a haul of first-round picks, or at least a good amount of picks over the next several years, to retool a team around Jason Tatum when he comes back from his Achilles injury. It's unlikely that Jason Tatum plays next year, so you're starting to look towards that future already. And obviously, Boston wanted to get under that second apron when it came to the salary cap and how that's changing with the NBA. So that was a huge part of it as well. But the Atlanta Hawks are definitely a team that's going to be a team to look at, a team to take a little more seriously in the Eastern Conference. They've been a fringe playing team for the past couple of years. Trae Young, although a very good player, he hasn't necessarily been the guy that can carry a team on his back and take them to new heights. Ever since that Eastern Conference Finals berth, we have not seen much from Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks. But I expect a much improved team this season down in Atlanta. So the Atlanta Hawks are by surprise winners of NBA free agency so far. Who are my losers? We got to start with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, I know they just signed DeAndre Ayton. That's a decent pickup. But you look at what the way that they run their offense. What kind of big do they need? They need an athletic big with a high motor that can get up and down the floor and is known for great defense. You tried to go after Mark Williams from the Charlotte Hornets. Now he's on his way to Phoenix. Brook Lopez was available. You couldn't get him. This free agency class of centers didn't really, impress me, in my opinion. You look at it's led by Al Horford, who's 39. Jackson Hayes, who you just had, you're probably not going to want to sign him back. Alex Len, another guy you probably won't sign back. There were just a bunch of centers that, they were there, but they weren't exactly guys that you were clamoring to get to. Now, DeAndre Ayton is probably higher up on that list since he became available after a buyout from the Portland Trail Blazers. Again, as I said earlier, we have to see what kind of effort and motivation that DeAndre Ayton is going to carry. That's been the one knock on him. It's not that he can't play. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He's been compared to the likes of Karl Malone as far as his offensive game. He has a lot of talent, and he's still a very young player. But we have to see that next step. How is he going to fit in with the likes of the Lakers? You imagine that LeBron James, with his leadership, will get the best out of DeAndre Ayton, as you started to see with Luka Doncic as the season has waned on. So he's in a good situation. He's got good leadership. JJ Redick is a very good coach. You imagine that he's going to work with him and try to get him better. Who knows? I didn't know that Dorian Finney-Smith was going to fit in so well with the Lakers like he did last year, but that's great coaching by JJ Redick and how the situation has evolved as the season's gone on. So I imagine this is going to be a good signing down the road. We just have to wait and see. But that's the reason why I call the Lakers my free agency losers right now, because they missed out on, I think, a couple of opportunities to get really good athletic young bigs that would fit in to what they want to do, which is run and gun, throw lobs, pick and roll with Luka Doncic and let him work. I think those kind of guys are what they were looking for first. But you ended up with DeAndre Ayton. Let's see how it works out. Great players to figure out how to play with anybody. My other loser right now is the Milwaukee Bucks. You know that your star player is ready to – he's not happy. The reports are that Giannis was not happy at all with the Milwaukee Bucks, letting go of Damian Lillard. They took to Twitter and was like, basically, I don't know what's going on right now. Giannis should want to leave. He should pay attention to other teams and see what's out there. He should formally request a trade and try to get out of Milwaukee. I think that he's done the city, he's done the city well. In my opinion, he's paid his dues. He brought Milwaukee a championship. It's something that many players don't do. They don't stick around nowadays. Bring a championship to the franchise that they were drafted to before asking for a trade or wanting out. I think Giannis has earned the right to shop around and see what else is out there, because I think there's a better situation for him. The Bucks have not have not put together a good roster since that championship run. You traded away Jrue Holiday for Damian Lillard. A lot of people were not excited about that because Jrue Holiday, especially on the defensive side of the ball, was a big reason why Milwaukee was able to capture that championship in 2021. Chris Middleton began to age. He started to get, injury prone, wasn't available, so you ended up moving on from him as well. Kyle Kuzma comes to Milwaukee. It hasn't exactly worked out like you would hope, especially in the playoffs, although Kyle Kuzma does carry a lot of talent. Same thing with Kevin Porter Jr. And now Brook Lopez, another key from the championship team that you had. Now he's gone. You replace him with Miles Turner. Decent three-point shooting big. But you look at this roster, who is the number 2 for Giannis? Who's going to be that second option, as far as on the offensive end with Giannis? It used to be Chris Middleton. It used to be Damian Lillard. Now they're both gone. Where does Milwaukee go from here? I haven't been impressed with what they've done as far as free agency. I know they signed a couple of their guys back. Like I said, they got Miles Turner. They signed Bobby Portis back. But does this roster tell you anything about Milwaukee possibly making a push in the East, even with how the East is compromised as it is? The Knicks are, a team that's kind of floating out there as they should be one of the better teams in the East. They should be, but it's the Knicks, so we don't really know what's going to happen. They just fired a coach who got them to the Eastern Conference for the first time in 25 years. So who knows what the Knicks are going to do? I saw that they just hired Mike Brown. That's a very decent hire. Mike Brown's been proven to be a very good coach in this league. We'll see how he can elevate the Knicks to the finals, because that was the point of, looking for a coach in the first place to replace Tom Thibodeau, according to James Dolan and the GM from the New York Knicks. Apparently what Tom Thibodeau was doing wasn't enough. So let's see what Mike Brown can do to elevate the Knicks going forward. But other than the Knicks, the Celtics, you imagine, are not going to be the same team. They're not going to be as good next year, obviously, with what they've already traded away. And, of course, Jason Tatum not being available for next season due to his torn Achilles. Tyrese Halliburton and the Indiana Pacers just got weaker because Tyrese Halliburton, as we know, unfortunately tore his Achilles in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And now there's no Miles Turner. So you imagine that Indiana is not going to be anywhere near as good as they have been this year. Rick Carlisle is still a very good coach. He'll be there. But the personnel is different. It's not going to be the same team. So you look at that. Cleveland Cavaliers, they won 66 games this past year. I never believed in them. I still don't believe in them. I have to wait and see. Cleveland's going to have to literally show me. Like, the bottom line of ESPN has to show me that the Cavaliers won the Eastern Conference and are going to the NBA Finals for me to believe it. Cleveland's just one of those teams that, hey, they'll win a lot of games in the regular season. They'll be fun to watch, throughout the year. But when it comes to the playoffs, are we going to see the same team, or are they just going to fold like they always do? Last year, I bet that they were going to fold, and I ended up being right. So if I'm Milwaukee, I got to do more to compete in the East because of what's going on here. And now you got the likes of the Detroit Pistons. They're on the come up. The Orlando Magic got better. They acquired Desmond Bane via trade to pair with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. So they're on the come up. You got to pay attention to these younger teams that are coming up. And you have to pay attention to the dismantling of the teams that were once dominant up top in the Eastern Conference, especially the Boston Celtics. The East is wide open, and Milwaukee has shown that they're not doing enough with their roster, in my opinion, to do something with it. So if I'm Giannis Antetokounmpo, I got to pay attention to what else is going on. I would say keep your eyes on San Antonio. I would say keep your eyes on Golden State as well for a landing spot for Antetokounmpo.